The bank called and asked if I was alone. Then the man said my caregiver had been moving through my accounts like she owned them. 2 months of help suddenly felt like a setup. I didn't yell. I grabbed a pen, opened my notebook and started tracing what didn't belong. I'm 72 years old and for most of my life I handled money the same way I handled everything else. Slowly, carefully, and on paper first. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a cop. But I spent 35 years as a plant maintenance supervisor. Machines, schedules, logs, inventory. If a belt was slipping, you didn't kick the machine. You checked the tension, traced the noise, and found what didn't belong. That habit followed me into retirement. After my wife Marlene passed 3 years ago, my world got smaller in a way I didn't expect. Not just quieter, smaller. The house felt too big, the evenings were too long, and the little things you don't think about when you're married. Who notices you didn't eat? Who reminds you about your blood pressure meds? Who hears you stumble in the hallway at night? Those things became real. My kids tried, in their own way. My son Eric called on Sundays when he wasn't buried at work. My daughter Dana sent grocery delivery when she remembered. And my grandson Liam was the one who actually showed up. Liam is 19, first year of community college, good kid, observant eyes, the kind that don't just look at you, they scan the room like they're reading it. He'd come by after class sometimes, sit at my kitchen table and pretend he was there to study, but I could tell he was checking on me. One afternoon he said, "Grandpa, you're doing okay, but you're doing everything alone." "I'm doing fine," I told him, reaching for my coffee. He watched my hand. I have a tremor that comes and goes. Some days it's nothing. Some days it makes buttons and zippers feel like engineering problems. He didn't argue. He just nodded like he was filing my words away. A week later, my son called with a solution, delivered like a favor. "Dad, we talked," Eric said. "Me and Rachel. Rachel is my daughter-in-law. She has a way of speaking where every sentence sounds like she's already decided you're difficult. Even when she's being helpful, it feels like you're being managed." Eric continued, "We found someone who can come by, help with meals, laundry, driving you to appointments. Just a few hours a day." "I don't need a babysitter," I said. "It's not like that. It's just support. You fell last month." "I tripped over a hose," I snapped. Then I softened my voice. "I'm still here. I'm still me." There was a pause. Then Eric said, "I know, but let us do this, please. I should tell you something about being a father at my age. You start measuring love in compromises. Not because you become weak, because you become tired of fighting every hill. You tell yourself, it's not worth the argument. It'll make them feel better. It'll be fine." So I said, "All right, a few hours." That's how Jenna entered my house. Jenna was in her early 40s, hair always pulled back, clean scrubs even when she wasn't on duty, and a voice that stayed sweet no matter what she said. At first she was exactly what Eric promised, practical help. She stocked my fridge and labeled containers. She made charts for my meds. She cleaned the bathroom like she was preparing it for inspection. And she learned my routines quickly. Too quickly maybe, but at the time I called it professionalism. "Mr. Caldwell," she said on her second day, "I like to keep my clients safe. That includes financial safety. Scammers target seniors." I looked up from my newspaper. "I've been balancing checkbooks since before you were born." She smiled, patient. "Of course, but just in case, I recommend putting a spending alert on your accounts and maybe having your bills on autopay. Less stress for you." I didn't like the idea of anyone touching my accounts, but I also hated how much I'd started forgetting small deadlines. Water bill, pharmacy refill, the kind of mistake that snowballs into late fees and embarrassment. So I agreed to the alerts. I agreed to autopay for utilities. I did not agree to hand over control. At least, that's what I believed. Jenna started asking small questions, the kind that sound harmless. "Do you have a living trust? Where do you keep your important documents? Do your kids have power of attorney set up? Not that we need it, just for emergencies." Every time she said emergency, she looked at my stairs. One day she held up a folder. "I'm organizing for you. Medical on the left, financial on the right. If you ever end up in the hospital, someone needs to know where things are." I should have heard the quiet message inside that sentence. Someone. Still, I told myself she was just thorough. People like me get proud. and pride makes you blind. You start thinking, nobody can pull one over on me. Then the atmosphere in my family shifted. Rachel began calling more. Not to ask how I was, to ask what I was doing. What did the doctor say? She'd ask. Fine, I'd say. What did he prescribe? Nothing new. What about the house? Did you renew your homeowner's insurance? We should make sure everything is updated. That word started showing up everywhere, like a signature. And Eric became strangely quiet, like he'd been relieved of responsibility. If I mentioned a bill, he'd say, Jenna's handling the organization, right? If I said I was thinking about fixing my back porch, he'd say, ask Jenna if it's safe. I didn't like how quickly my life was becoming a group project. But again, no big explosion, just little nudges. And I tried to keep the peace, until the call from the bank. It happened on a Tuesday morning, right after Jenna left. The house still smelled like the lemon cleaner she used on my counters. I was at the kitchen table, looking at a list of things I wanted to do. Normal things. Oil change, call the dentist, pick up birdseed. My landline rang. I almost didn't answer. Most calls these days are spam. But the caller ID showed my bank's local branch. I picked up. Hello? A man's voice, professional and careful. Mr. Caldwell? This is Alan Brooks from Westfield Community Bank. Do you have a moment to speak privately? That phrase, speak privately, made my stomach tighten. I'm alone, I said. Thank you. Mr. Caldwell, I'm calling regarding unusual activity and a concern that involves account authority. I sat back slowly. What kind of activity? He paused like he was choosing words that wouldn't offend me. We flagged a pattern of transactions and inquiries. Specifically, your caregiver has been interacting with your accounts in a way that appears consistent with ownership behavior. Ownership, I repeated. That's not possible. I want to be clear, he said. I'm not accusing anyone of a crime over the phone, but our system flagged repeated balance checks, attempted limit increases, and a request for replacement cards. In addition, there was an attempt to add a new authorized user online. The name entered matched someone you do not currently have listed. My throat went dry. Who? He hesitated again. The request listed Jenna M. Harlow as an authorized user candidate. Jenna, my caregiver. In my mind, I saw her hands gloved, efficient, folding towels in my laundry room. I saw her smiling while she slid my mail into neat stacks. You're saying she tried to add herself to my account? I asked. I'm saying an online request was initiated, Alan replied, and our fraud prevention protocols stopped it pending verification. We also noticed in-branch inquiries where she appeared to be speaking on your behalf. Our teller noted she was unusually familiar with your balances and your account structure. I gripped the edge of the table. She has no right. I understand. I need to ask you directly, Mr. Caldwell. Have you signed any power of attorney documents, third-party authorization forms, or caregiver access agreements with Miss Harlow? No, I said immediately. Then, because honesty matters, I added, not that I know of. Silence. Then Alan said softly, not that you know of is exactly why I'm calling. My heart hammered once. Hard. Anger wanted to rise, hot and stupid. The kind that makes you call your son and scream accusations with no proof. But another instinct, older, steadier, took over. The same instinct that kept men safe around heavy machinery. Don't reach into the machine while it's still running. I inhaled slowly. What do you need from me? First, Alan said, I recommend you come in today if possible. We'll review your accounts, place additional safeguards, and print transaction history. Second, I want you to know we can request ATM camera footage for specific withdrawals if we have dates and times. Third, we can place a note on your profile that no one is to speak on your behalf without you physically present and showing ID. I stared at the lemon-cleaned countertop like it belonged to someone else's kitchen. How long has this been happening? Our system began flagging irregularities about 3 weeks ago, Alan replied. But the behavior pattern goes back about 2 months. Small inquiries at first. The kind that escalates. Escalates. That word hit me harder than ownership, because escalates means intention. Mr. Weir, Dicketas Dock of Weir. Caldwell, Alan continued. I'm sorry to ask this, but do you feel safe in your home? I answered without thinking. Yes. Then I stopped. Because the truth was, I didn't know anymore. I said, I don't feel threatened physically, but I don't like what you're telling me. That's valid, he said. Please come in. And if you have a family member you trust, bring them. Family member you trust. My mind went to Eric and Rachel, and my stomach tightened again. After I hung up, I sat there for a long time without moving, just listening to the hum of my refrigerator and the distant sound of a lawnmower outside, like the world was determined to stay normal. Then my phone buzzed. Text message. From Rachel. Hi. Just checking in. Did Jenna stop by today? Everything okay? I stared at that smiley face like it was a fingerprint. I didn't reply. Instead, I called Liam. He answered on the second ring. Hey, Grandpa. What's up? Where are you? I asked. Campus. I'm between classes. Can you come by after? I need to talk to you. Alone. There was a pause. Not fear. Focus. Yeah. I can be there in an hour. Are you okay? I'm fine, I lied. Then I corrected myself. I don't know if I'm fine, but I need you. I'm coming, he said. When Liam arrived, he didn't come in loud. He didn't announce himself the way most teenagers do. He stepped into my kitchen, looked at my face, and his own expression tightened. You look pale, he said. I pulled out the chair across from me. Sit. He sat. His backpack stayed on, like he might need to leave fast. I told him everything. The bank, the word ownership, the attempt to add herself, the balance checks, the replacement card request. Liam listened without interrupting, but I saw something shift behind his eyes, like a puzzle piece clicking into place. When I finished, he swallowed and said, Grandpa, I need to show you something. My chest tightened. What? He reached into his backpack and pulled out a small USB drive. Plain black, no label. Then he pulled out his phone, but he didn't unlock it right away. He just held it like it was heavy. I didn't know how to tell you, he said quietly. And I wasn't even sure it mattered at first. But now, yeah, it matters. My voice came out rough. Liam, what is that? He slid the USB across the table toward me, but he kept his fingers on it for a second, like he wasn't ready to let go. I recorded something, he said. Not like spying for fun. I swear. I was here last week, and I heard Jenna talking in the hallway, and she wasn't talking to you. My skin went cold. Who was she talking to? Liam finally let go of the USB. Rachel. The name landed like a brick. I stared at my grandson. Are you sure? He nodded once. I'm sure. I didn't mean to listen, but I heard numbers, like daily limits. And I heard Rachel say, he doesn't check the statements. He just signs what Jenna puts in front of him. My stomach twisted, sharp and nauseating. And Jenna? I asked, though I already knew I didn't want the answer. Liam's voice dropped. Jenna said, we just need him to sign the authorization once. After that, the bank treats me like the account holder. The room felt too bright suddenly. The sunlight through my window looked harsh, like an interrogation lamp. I forced myself to breathe in through my nose, out through my mouth, slow. Why didn't you tell me immediately? I asked, and I hated how small my voice sounded. Liam's face tightened with guilt. Because you were finally calmer lately, and Jenna was nice to your face. I thought maybe I misheard. Then I started noticing stuff. Your mail already opened sometimes. Jenna hovering when you typed your PIN at the pharmacy. Rachel texting more. It felt wrong. I nodded. Not because it was okay, but because I understood the fear of being the one to light the match. I tapped the USB lightly with one finger. What's on this? A video, Liam said. It's mostly black because I recorded from my pocket, but the audio is clear. And there's more. On my phone. Messages. I looked up fast. Messages between who? Between Jenna and someone saved as R. He swallowed. I'm pretty sure it's Rachel. The messages talk about moving money before he notices, and keeping Eric calm. My hands clenched under the table. They weren't just taking advantage of me. They were coordinating. I sat back, staring at the ceiling for a moment, forcing myself not to speak the first words that came to mind, because the first words were rage, and rage makes you reckless. I looked at Liam again. Listen to me carefully. You did the right thing by bringing this to me, but from this moment on, you don't confront anyone. Not Jenna, not Rachel, not your father. Do you understand? He nodded quickly. Yeah, I won't. Good, I said. Then I leaned forward, lowering my voice the way I used to when I trained new guys at the plant. Because if they know we have proof, they'll erase their trail, they'll change their story, they'll make me look confused, and they'll make you look like a liar. Liam's jaw tightened. They won't get away with it. I stared at the USB again, then at the phone in his hand. In that moment, a strange calm settled over me. Not peace, not acceptance, clarity. If Jenna was moving like an owner, it meant she believed she'd already won. And if Rachel was involved, it meant my own family had helped open the gate. I stood up slowly and walked to the cabinet where I keep my documents: deed, birth certificates, old tax files in labeled folders. I took out a yellow legal pad and a pen. Liam watched me. "Grandpa, what are you doing?" I clicked the pen once. "The same thing I've done my whole life when something breaks," I said. "I make a list, I document, and I fix it the right way." I wrote at the top of the page, Jenna/Rachel accounts. Then I looked at Liam and said, "You're going to stay close, and you're going to help me do this quietly." He nodded. "Okay." I glanced toward the front window, half expecting to see Jenna's car returning early, like she could sense the shift. "First," I said, keeping my voice steady, "we go to the bank. Today, we get printouts. We ask what they can legally provide. We lock my accounts down. Second, we secure every paper in this house. No more mail left out. No more documents where Jenna can organize them." Liam's eyes stayed on mine. "And my dad?" I hesitated, because that was the knife in the middle of the table. "We don't accuse anyone yet," I said finally. "Not until we know exactly what they did, what they tried to do, and what we can prove." I held up the USB. "This is a start, but we're not going to win with a start. We're going to win with a file so thick they can't wriggle out of it." Liam swallowed. "Are you scared?" I looked at my grandson, the one person in my bloodline who had chosen loyalty over convenience, and I told him the truth. "I'm not scared of them," I said. "I'm scared of what happens if I stay quiet." Then I set the USB on the legal pad like it was a weight holding the paper still. "And Liam," I added, "from now on we act normal. Jenna thinks she's dealing with an old man who doesn't notice. Let her keep believing that." Liam nodded again, and this time I saw something I hadn't seen earlier. Relief, because now the secret wasn't sitting on his shoulders alone. Now we were carrying it together. We left the house like we were going to pick up lunch. That's what I told myself as I locked the front door. Simple movement, simple reason. But my hand stayed on the doorknob a second too long. Because for the first time since Marlene died, my home didn't feel like a sanctuary. It felt like a workplace where someone had been clocking in behind my back. Liam walked close beside me down the driveway. "You want me to drive?" he asked. "I'm still licensed," I said automatically. He didn't argue. He just said okay, and watched me as I started the car. That's what Liam does. He doesn't fight for control. He watches for cracks. On the drive to the bank, I kept my eyes forward, but my mind kept replaying that line Liam heard. "He just signs what Jenna puts in front of him." I wanted to say Rachel's name out loud and spit it into the windshield like poison, but I didn't. I kept my voice calm. "We're going to do this step by step." Liam nodded. "What's step one?" "Step one is making sure no one can touch my money today," I said. "Step two is making sure they can't pretend I agreed." He looked at me. "And step three?" I gripped the steering wheel tighter. "Step three is finding out how deep this goes." When we reached Westfield Community Bank, the parking lot was half full. That normal sight, minivans, couple of work trucks, a man pushing a stroller, made what I was doing feel even stranger. Because fraud doesn't announce itself with sirens. It wears scrubs. It brings groceries. It smiles at your grandchildren. Inside, the air smelled like carpet cleaner and printer ink. I walked to the counter and told the teller I had an appointment with Alan Brooks. She didn't ask questions. She just made a call and pointed us toward a glass-walled office. Alan stood as soon as he saw me. Mid-40s, neat haircut, cautious eyes. He shook my hand firmly and then looked at Liam. "Mr. Caldwell," he said, "thank you for coming in. Is this your grandson?" "Yes," I said. "He's here because I trust him." Alan nodded like he understood the weight of that sentence. "All right, let's go through this carefully." He closed the office door and sat down across from me, opening a folder with my name on it. I noticed the folder was thicker than it should have been. That scared me more than anything. Alan slid a paper across the desk. These are the alerts that triggered our review. I'll summarize first, then we'll look at dates. He pointed with a pen. There were multiple balance inquiries, online and in-branch, usually within hours of each other. There were 2 attempts to reset online banking credentials. There was 1 attempted card replacement request, and there was a drafted request, never finalized, to add an authorized user. He looked at me directly. The request wasn't approved. It never went through, but it was started. I swallowed. How can someone start that without my password? Alan's expression stayed professional, but his eyes softened. There are a few ways. If someone has access to your email, they can intercept verification links. If someone knows your security questions, mother's maiden name, first pet, that sort of thing, it's possible. My stomach tightened. Marlene and I used the same security answers for years, not because it was smart, because it was easy, and Jenna had been organizing my paperwork, my mail, my life. Alan continued, there's something else. A teller reported that Miss Harlow, your caregiver, came in twice. The first time she asked general questions. The second time, she attempted to initiate a third-party assistance authorization. A what? I asked. It's a form some clients use when they want someone else to help with transactions, Alan said. It is not power of attorney. It does not give ownership, but it can be misused if someone pressures a client into signing it. Liam's hands curled into fists on his knees. I leaned forward. Did she succeed? Alan shook his head. No. She didn't have your ID, and the teller refused to proceed without you present. But the attempt is documented in our internal notes. I exhaled slowly. That was one small mercy. Alan flipped to another page. Mr. Caldwell, I want to ask this as plainly as I can. Have you ever given Jenna your debit card or your PIN? No, I said. Then I hesitated because the truth matters. She has seen me enter it at the pharmacy once or twice. She stands close. Alan nodded, writing something down. Okay. And do you keep your card in a consistent place at home? In my wallet, I said. In my bedroom drawer at night. Liam's eyes narrowed like he was already picturing Jenna tidying up near that drawer. Alan said, here's what we should do immediately. He spoke in bullet points, like a man trained to stop damage quickly. First, we freeze your debit card and issue a new one with a new number. Second, we reset your online banking credentials and security questions using answers no one would know. Third, we place a verbal password on your profile. Any transaction over the phone or in branch requires that password, even if someone has your ID. Fourth, we limit transfers temporarily unless you approve them in person. I nodded. Do it. Alan printed paperwork. While the printer worked, I asked the question that had been burning a hole in my chest. Can you show me the transactions? The withdrawals? Alan slid a statement toward me. There were no large withdrawals yet. That's part of why this was caught early. Because it looks like someone was preparing, testing boundaries, learning patterns. He tapped the paper again. However, there were 2 ATM withdrawals that concern us. Both were small amounts, under $200, but they were taken at odd times and they don't match your usual behavior. I stared at the dates. One was a night I'd been in bed by 9, watching old reruns and falling asleep with the remote in my hand. The other was early morning, before Jenna normally arrived. I felt my jaw tighten. I didn't take these out. Alan nodded. If you want, we can begin the process of requesting ATM footage. We can't always retrieve it depending on the ATM and retention time, but we can try. I want it, I said immediately. Alan turned to Liam. Young man, you said you trust him. I want to say this clearly. If you have any evidence, recordings, messages, do not edit them. Do not share them widely. Keep originals. If law enforcement becomes involved, chain of custody matters. Liam swallowed. I have something. Original files. My heart pounded once. Liam hadn't told Alan, but now he was saying it. Alan looked at me for confirmation. I nodded slightly. We do. Alan's voice stayed calm, but his eyes sharpened. Okay. Then we proceed with both banking safeguards and documentation. He pushed the new documents toward me. Mr. Caldwell, I need you to sign here and here. This confirms the changes you're authorizing today. I picked up the pen and paused. The pen felt heavier than it should have, because Liam's words echoed again. He just signs what Jenna puts in front of him. I looked at Alan. Before I sign, Tell me what each line does. Alan didn't flinch or get impatient. He actually nodded, like he respected me more for asking. He went through every line, every clause, every effect, and only then did I sign. When we finished, Alan printed a letter confirming the fraud alert and the protective measures, something I could show if anyone tried to push me later. As we stood to leave, Alan said quietly, "One more thing. If you feel someone is financially exploiting you, it may qualify for an Adult Protective Services report in this county." I held his gaze. "I'm not confused, Alan. I'm not incompetent. I'm being targeted." Alan's jaw tightened. "Understood. And if anyone tries to frame you as confused, documentation will protect you." That sentence stayed with me all the way back to the car. In the parking lot, Liam exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for an hour. "So, she didn't get it yet?" "Not yet," I said. "But she was building a bridge." "To what?" Liam asked. "To transferring money. To taking loans. To selling my house out from under me if she could," I said. "These people don't start with the big theft. They start by making the bank treat them like they belong." Liam stared at the bank doors. "And Rachel was in on it." I didn't answer right away, because saying it out loud made it real in a way my heart didn't want. Instead I said, "We're not going home yet." Liam blinked. "Where are we going?" "To the office supply store," I said. "And then to lunch." He frowned. "Lunch?" "Yes," I said. "Because if Jenna asks, we had a normal day. Because if Rachel asks, we had a normal day. And because," I added, "I think someone is watching patterns, and I want them bored." At the office supply store, I bought two things I never thought I'd need at 72. A small lockbox and a packet of tamper-evident seals. Liam raised his eyebrows. "Grandpa, are you going spy mode?" "I'm going don't touch my life mode," I said. We ate lunch at a diner I used to go to with Marlene. Quiet booths. Coffee that tasted like it came from the same pot since 1998. Liam ate fries. I barely touched my food. I kept thinking about what I'd missed. Mail that seemed already opened. A pharmacy trip where Jenna insisted on holding my wallet so I don't drop it. The way she'd stand behind my shoulder when I typed. All those small moments that felt like help, when really they were rehearsals. Back home, I walked straight to my bedroom and opened the drawer where I kept my wallet at night. My debit card was there. My cash was there. Everything looked normal. That's the worst part about a careful thief. They leave your life looking normal until the day it's not. I placed the lockbox in the closet and moved my vital documents into it. Birth certificate, social security card, marriage certificate, deed, insurance policies, the folder with my account statements. Then I placed the tamper seals on the outside edge of the lockbox lid, not because they could stop anyone, but because they could tell me if someone tried. Liam watched silently, then said, "You think she'll go through your room?" "She already has," I said, and my voice came out colder than I meant. "Not with her hands, with her eyes." Liam shifted. "What do you want me to do with the USB?" I held out my hand. "Not in the house, not yet." He followed me to the garage, where my old metal tool cabinet sat. Heavy, dented, reliable. I opened a bottom drawer and moved a few wrenches aside, revealing an old tin coffee can. Inside were spare keys, a little emergency cash, and a folded piece of paper with Marlene's handwriting, something I couldn't bring myself to throw away. I set the USB inside and closed the can. Liam looked at me. "Why here?" "Because Jenna cleans my kitchen," I said. "She doesn't reorganize my tools." He nodded like he understood exactly. Then I checked my phone. 3 missed messages. One from Jenna. "Running a bit late tomorrow, but I'll be there." "Anything you need from the store?" One from Eric. "Hey Dad, everything good? Rachel said you seemed quiet." And one from Rachel. "Just making sure you're okay. Please answer. You worry us. You worry us." The words felt like a net. I turned my phone face down on the table and looked at Liam. "They're checking." Liam's voice was tight. "What do you want to tell them?" I thought for a moment, then typed one message. Short, harmless, boring. To Eric and Rachel in a group text. "All good. Just tired today. Went out with Liam for lunch." I watched the typing bubbles appear almost instantly. Rachel replied, "So glad. Did you do your banking stuff like we talked about?" My stomach turned. "We talked about." I showed the text to Liam. His eyes widened. "We? When did you talk about that?" "We didn't," I said. But she's trying to make it sound like we did. Like she's part of my financial life. I typed back. Not today. Just lunch. I could almost feel her frustration through the screen. Then I looked at Liam. Now, I said, we need to listen to that recording together. Not because I don't believe you. Because I need to know exactly what was said, word for word. Liam hesitated. Here? I shook my head. In the car. We sat in my driveway with the doors closed, engine off, phones on airplane mode. Liam plugged his phone into the car speakers and pulled up the file. For a moment it was just muffled footsteps, a door closing, the faint sound of my TV in the background. Then Jenna's voice, clearer. She's not going to push the limits unless you do, Jenna said. Rachel's voice followed, sharp and impatient. He's old, he won't notice. But the bank will. That's why you have to be the one. You're the caregiver. It looks normal if you do it. Jenna again. I can't just walk in and act like I own it. I need a signed authorization. Once it's on file, it's clean. Rachel, clean is all I care about. Eric is useless. I'm the one keeping this family afloat. Jenna, then tell Eric to stop calling the bank with questions. It makes them suspicious. Rachel, fine. Just what's the daily limit if we start with ATM withdrawals? Jenna, depends on the card. But if we get a replacement sent to my address, we can set the PIN ourselves. Rachel, do it. And don't screw this up. The audio crackled, then ended with Liam shifting his phone. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. My hands were resting on the steering wheel even though the car was off. My fingers were white around it. Liam's voice was low. Grandpa. I stared straight ahead. She said replacement sent to my address. Liam nodded. Yeah. I swallowed hard. That means she was going to reroute my mail, my card, my identity. Liam's jaw clenched. And Rachel, she wasn't even hiding it. No, I said. She was managing it. I sat there with the silence pressing in, and then a new thought surfaced, sharp and sickening. Liam, I said slowly. How did she know I wouldn't notice statements? He looked at me. Because Jenna gets the mail first. And because, I added, someone has been telling her what I do and don't check. Liam's eyes flicked toward the house. You think my dad? I don't know what your father knows. I cut in. But Rachel knows too much. And Jenna is acting too bold. I took a long breath. This is why we don't confront. Not yet. Liam nodded, but he looked angry now. Hurt. I understood that hurt. It was the same hurt I felt, only mine was buried under decades of fatherhood excuses. We went back inside, and I forced myself to move normally. Wash my coffee mug, fold a dish towel, turn on the TV. I even laughed once at a dumb joke on a game show, just in case someone walked in and tried to read the mood. Then, late afternoon, I heard the familiar click of the front door. Jenna's voice called out sweetly. Mr. Caldwell, it's me. I didn't answer immediately. I waited 2 seconds, just long enough to remind myself, she still thinks she's in control. Then I called back, calm and warm. I'm in the living room. She appeared in the doorway with grocery bags, smiling like a woman who believed she was indispensable. Sorry I'm a little late, she said. Traffic was terrible. I brought you those low-sodium soups you like. Thank you, I said, and I meant it in the same way you thank someone who hands you a weapon you know you'll need. She set the bags down and glanced around, her eyes moving quickly. Mail pile, counters, my chair, looking for changes. Then she looked at me. How was your day? Quiet, I said. Liam took me to lunch. Her smile tightened for half a second. Oh, how nice. She tried to sound casual. Did you run any errands? Pharmacy? Bank? Anything like that? There it was, a simple question with a hook inside it. I met her eyes and gave her the answer that would keep her comfortable. No, I said. Just lunch. Jenna relaxed a fraction. Good. Rest is important. Then she reached for my stack of mail on the side table like it belonged to her routine, and I watched her hand hover over it. I said gently, leave that. I'll take care of it tonight. Her fingers froze. She looked up, still smiling. Of course. I just thought I'd help. I know, I said, pleasant as a Sunday morning. But I want to do it myself. For a moment I saw something behind her eyes. Not kindness. Calculation. Then she nodded. Whatever you prefer. As she moved into the kitchen, I kept my face calm. But inside something hardened. Because now I knew for sure. I wasn't imagining it. I wasn't being paranoid. I was standing in my own home, watching a stranger pretend to care for me while she measured how much of my life she could take. And I had one advantage she didn't realize yet. I had the bank on alert, a witness with a clean conscience, and proof that spoke in their own voices. Now all I had to do was build the rest of the case without tipping them off. That night, I didn't sleep like a man who was tired. I slept like a man who had left his keys in the wrong hands. I kept replaying Jenna's question. Bank? Anything like that? And the way she'd tried to touch my mail like it was part of her job description. Around 2 a.m, I got up, walked barefoot to the kitchen, and opened my lockbox just to confirm the documents were still there. The tamper seal was intact. I sat at the table with a glass of water and my legal pad, and I wrote a line that felt ugly but necessary. Assume they will call me confused. If there's one thing I learned watching older men get pushed out of jobs, pushed out of decisions, pushed out of their own lives, it's this. People don't steal from you by force at first. They steal your credibility. By morning, I had a plan that wasn't emotional. It was mechanical. Step 3. Force the truth into daylight, where it can't be explained away. And I needed to do it while Jenna still thought I was sleepy and manageable. Liam came by the next day right after his classes. We didn't sit at the kitchen table this time, too exposed. We sat in the garage with the door half open, like we were tinkering with something. I told him, we need backups. Originals stay with you and me. Copies go into a second location. He nodded. I already copied the video and screenshots to my laptop. I can export everything with timestamps. Good, I said. And we need a transcript. Liam blinked. Like, written out? Yes, I said. Word for word. Who said what? And when? He looked a little overwhelmed, but he didn't back away. Okay, I'll do it tonight. Then I added, and Liam, don't send it to anyone. Not your friends. Not your mother. Not your dad. No cloud links. No social media. This isn't drama. This is evidence. He swallowed. I get it. Over the next week, I lived a double life inside my own house. On the surface, I was the same old man. I let Jenna cook. I thanked her for cleaning. I asked about her kids, her schedule, her weekend plans. I let her feel safe. Underneath, I was collecting. Every time Jenna asked me a question about money, I wrote it down with the date and time. Every time Rachel texted about banking, I screenshotted it and sent it to Liam, using a method we agreed on. Direct transfer when he was physically with me, no open threads. And I made sure Jenna never saw my phone screen. I also started doing something that felt humiliating at first. I stopped being polite about my paperwork. When Jenna tried to organize my mail, I stopped her. When she offered to hold my wallet on errands, I said no. When she asked for my social security card to update your medical file, I told her I'd handle it. Each time her smile stayed, but her eyes hardened a little more. It was like watching a friendly mask crack. 3 days after the bank visit, Alan called me back. Mr. Caldwell, we were able to pull internal branch notes and confirm the dates Miss Harlow came in, he said, and we requested ATM footage. We have one clip that's usable. My throat tightened. Usable how? It's not perfect, he said, but it clearly shows the person at the ATM. It is not you. I closed my eyes for a second. Can I get a copy? Yes, Alan replied. You'll need to come in to request it formally. We can provide it to law enforcement directly, but we can also provide you a still image and an incident summary. I didn't even think. I'm coming today. I brought Liam again. He didn't speak much, but I could feel his presence like a stabilizing bar against my spine. Alan met us with a printed still photo on bank letterhead. Grainy but clear enough. A woman in scrubs, hair pulled back. Jenna. Even though my brain already knew, seeing it made something inside me go cold and quiet. Liam leaned in. That's her. Alan nodded. The withdrawal was at 6:12 a.m. Your usual activity begins mid-morning. You also have a pattern of using the branch ATM, not the one on Route 9. I stared at the timestamp. She was doing it before she came to my house. Alan's voice dropped. Yes. He slid another page over. An account access log summary. It listed online login attempts, password reset triggers, and location tags. Back at home, I made the next decision. I needed a lawyer. Not for a dramatic courtroom speech, but for structure. Someone who could tell me what counted, what didn't. Below it, blank lines for my name, my account numbers, and right there her name as the authorized person. It was exactly the bridge Alan had warned me about. Jenna watched my face carefully. It's just so you don't have to worry about running around if you're tired. We can also set up small limits. It's all very controlled. Controlled. That word again. I pretended to read slowly, like my eyes were old and my brain was slower than my pride. Then I did something Patricia taught me years ago, in another context. I asked an innocent question that wasn't innocent at all. Why does this need to include my account numbers? I asked. Jenna's smile didn't move, but her eyes flicked for half a second. Oh, just so it matches your profile. It's standard. And why does it list you as authorized for in-branch transactions? I continued calm. Not just bill pay. She laughed lightly. Mr. Caldwell, you're overthinking. It's just broad language. If you ever needed me to talk to the teller, I cut in softly. I don't. The air shifted. Jenna's smile tightened. Well, it's your choice, but your family wants you safe, Rachel said. I looked up sharply, letting just a hint of steel show. Rachel said what? Jenna hesitated, then recovered. Rachel worries about you. She thinks it would help. So Jenna wasn't even pretending it was her idea anymore. I nodded slowly, as if considering. Leave the papers, I'll review them. Jenna's voice stayed sweet, but I could hear the edge now. It's better to sign while I'm here so I can witness it. I shook my head. No. She opened her mouth, then closed it. All right, tomorrow then. After she left, I didn't touch those papers with my bare hands. I used latex gloves from my garage, old habit from working with chemicals, and I placed them into a clear plastic folder. Fingerprints weren't the issue. Documentation was. I took photos of every page, every line, the date printed at the bottom, and the fact that Jenna's name was already filled in. Then I put the originals into my lockbox. When Liam came by later, I showed him the forms. His face drained. She tried to get you to sign it. Yes, I said. And she said Rachel asked. Liam's mouth tightened. So my mom is pushing this. I didn't answer with comfort. I answered with strategy. We're going to give her one more chance to show her hand, I said. Liam looked at me. How? I leaned forward. We're going to act like I'm considering signing, and we're going to watch what they do next. The next day I told Jenna, casually. I talked to Liam about those forms. He thinks it's smart. It was a lie, but it was bait. Jenna's eyes brightened a fraction too quickly. Oh? That's wonderful. Liam's a good boy. Then she added too smoothly. So you'll sign? Not yet, I said, sipping coffee. But I might. I just want to understand the limits. Jenna leaned in like a salesperson sensing a closing. We can set limits. Daily limits. We can make it just for bills. I nodded slowly. Okay. Then I want it typed as bills only. No ATM. No card replacements. No adding authorized users. Just bills. And I want it witnessed by someone from the bank. Jenna's face flickered, annoyance, then control again. That's complicated, but I'll see what I can do. As she turned away, she didn't realize Liam was in the hallway, out of sight, recording audio on his phone, legal in our state as long as one party to the conversation consents. And I was the consenting party. That night, my phone buzzed with a new message from Rachel. Jenna said you're being difficult again. Dad, why are you making this hard? We're trying to help you. Help. Always that word. I stared at the screen, then typed back something carefully neutral. Just reading before I sign anything. Rachel replied almost instantly. You don't need to read. You need to trust your family. I showed the message to Liam. His eyes glistened, then hardened. She's trying to push you into signing blindly, he said. Yes, I said. And now we have proof of coercion. Because it wasn't just fraud anymore. It was pressure. It was intent. It was coordination. And as Jenna kept trying to pull me toward that signature, she didn't realize she'd walked into a tighter and tighter circle. Bank logs, ATM footage, transcripts, texts, and now a physical form in her own handwriting, with her name already planted like a flag. She thought she was guiding an old man. But what she was really doing was building my case for me, line by line in ink. After that, the house became a stage. Jenna moved through my rooms like she owned the air, but her patience was thinning. Rachel's texts turned sharper. And Eric stayed quiet, which in some ways was worse than yelling. Silence can be permission. Patricia Klein told me something during our second meeting that stuck like a nail. Predators don't like friction, she said. The moment you start asking for written limits and witnesses, you change the temperature. Watch what they do when the easy path closes. So that's what I did. I closed the easy path. Whenever Jenna brought up the form again, I stayed calm and repeated the same sentence like a broken record. I will not sign anything without my attorney reviewing it. At first, Jenna laughed it off. An attorney? Mr. Caldwell, that's so extreme. Then her tone changed. Rachel is going to be upset. The way she said it made Rachel sound like my supervisor. I shrugged. Rachel isn't the one signing. Jenna's jaw tightened. Your family is trying to protect you. I looked right at her. So am I. The day after I said that, something happened that told me we were getting close. I went to check my mailbox around noon. I expected the usual flyers, a coupon booklet, maybe a pharmacy reminder. Instead, there was a thin envelope from a credit bureau. My name on the front. I carried it inside and sat at my kitchen table before opening it, because I could already feel what it was. Inside was a notice of inquiry. Someone had attempted to run a credit check connected to a new line of credit. Not approved, not completed, but attempted. My hands didn't shake when I read it. My hands shook after. I called Patricia immediately. Do not throw that away, she said, voice sharp. Put it in the lockbox. Take pictures. That's escalation. I swallowed. How could they try that? They have your basic information, she said. Social security number, date of birth, address, or they're guessing and testing. Either way, it's a move toward loans. Loans. My house wasn't just a home to them. It was collateral. That night I told Liam, we're accelerating. He stared at the credit notice and looked sick. This is bad. It's predictable, I said. They're running out of time. The more I refuse to sign, the more they'll try routes that don't require my pen. Liam's voice cracked slightly. Are we calling the police? Not yet, I said. Not until we control the moment. Because I'd seen what happens when you call too early. People with smooth tongues turn it into a misunderstanding. Then you're the paranoid old man who caused family drama. They go back to your house with a smile and a new plan. Patricia agreed to one final step, a controlled confrontation built around the bank. Here's the idea. If Jenna truly believed she had authority, she'd be willing to act in front of bank staff. If she'd been coordinating with Rachel, she'd show it under pressure through calls, texts, or her desperation to get me to sign. And if we did it at the bank, we'd have cameras, witnesses, and immediate protective action. Patricia set it up with Alan Brooks. Alan didn't love the word trap, but he understood the seriousness. He agreed to schedule a routine account review appointment and have the branch manager present. He also arranged for the bank's security officer to be on standby. Patricia told me, you'll invite Jenna. You'll behave like you're finally cooperating, and you'll bring Liam. The moment Jenna tries to push you to sign or speak for you, we document it. Then I step in. I asked, what about Rachel? Patricia's eyes were steady. If Rachel is truly part of this, she will not resist inserting herself. She will call. She will text. She will try to control the outcome. Let her. So I did something that tasted like betrayal in my mouth, even though it was for justice. I played along. The next morning, Jenna arrived with that bright, practiced smile and said, Good morning, Mr. Caldwell. I made you oatmeal. I stirred my oatmeal slowly and said, I've been thinking about that authorization. You're right that it might help if I ever get sick. Jenna's eyes widened just a little. I'm glad you're seeing it. I want to do it properly, I said, at the bank, with someone explaining it. I don't want confusion. Her smile froze for a fraction of a second because the word confusion was the exact weapon she wanted to use against me, not the other way around. Then she recovered. That's a wonderful idea, I added casually. Rachel can come too if she wants. It'll make her feel better. Jenna's phone buzzed in her pocket almost immediately, like it was waiting for that sentence. She glanced at it, and for a split second I saw her thumb hover. Then she tucked the phone away and said, We can tell Rachel later. Let's just focus on you. Focus on you. I nodded like I agreed, but inside I marked it down. She didn't want witnesses she couldn't control. I texted Rachel myself an hour later, going to the bank tomorrow with Jenna to discuss authorization forms. Her reply came back in under 30 seconds. What? Why would Jenna go? I'm your family. I should be there. I stared at the screen. There it was. The possessiveness. The panic. I typed, It's just to understand paperwork. Liam is coming too. Rachel, no. Liam doesn't need to be involved, he's a child, 19 years old, legally an adult, and already being painted as irrelevant. I didn't argue. I just typed, "I'll let you know the time." Then I showed Liam. He looked like someone had punched him in the chest. "She's trying to isolate you," he said. "Yes," I replied. "And she's trying to isolate you too." The night before the appointment, I couldn't keep the truth from myself anymore. I needed to know what Eric's role was, so I called my son. He answered with a tired sigh like I'd interrupted him. "Hey Dad." "Eric," I said evenly. "I'm going to ask you something, and I want a straight answer." He paused. "Okay. Did you and Rachel tell Jenna to get access to my accounts?" Silence. Then he laughed once, a brittle sound. "What are you talking about?" I kept my voice calm. "Answer the question." "Dad, Jenna helps you. She's not." "Answer the question." I heard him inhale sharply, then quieter. "Rachel handles the paperwork. I stay out of it." That sentence told me everything without confessing anything. "You stay out of it," I repeated, tasting the bitterness. "So if Rachel told Jenna to do something, you just stay out of it." "Dad, you're making this into a conspiracy," he said, and now his voice had an edge. "Rachel's stressed. The kids are expensive. We're trying to plan. It's not like we're stealing." Plan. That word. He didn't say no. He didn't say Jenna isn't doing that. He said, "It's not like we're stealing," meaning the thought had already crossed the line in their minds. I said quietly, "If you needed money, you could have asked me." He snapped back. "You would have said no." I closed my eyes. And in that moment I understood something that hurt more than the fraud. They weren't doing this because I was weak. They were doing this because they believed I was in the way. The next day, I dressed like it mattered. Clean shirt, belt, my good jacket. Not to look rich, just to look unmistakably present. Liam picked me up and we drove to the bank 15 minutes early. Patricia met us in the parking lot. She wore a dark blazer and carried a slim briefcase like a weapon. "You're doing fine," she said softly. "Remember, don't argue. Let them speak." Inside, Alan guided us into the same glass office. The branch manager was there too, a woman with silver hair and eyes that missed nothing. Alan glanced at the clock. "Miss Harlow should be arriving shortly." I nodded. "She's bringing the forms she wants me to sign." Patricia sat beside me. Liam sat slightly behind, quiet and watchful. When Jenna arrived, her energy was different. Too bright, too confident. She looked at Patricia and blinked. "Oh, who's this?" I smiled politely. "My attorney." Jenna's face tightened. "An attorney? Mr. Caldwell. We didn't need to." Patricia cut in smoothly. "He can consult counsel anytime he chooses." Jenna let out a thin laugh. "Of course. I thought this was routine." Alan nodded. "It is routine to ensure the client understands." Jenna sat, placed her papers down, and tried to take control immediately. "Mr. Caldwell just needs a simple third-party authorization," she said, speaking to Alan as if I weren't there. "He's been forgetting things, and it's safer if I handle bill payments." Patricia's eyes flicked to me, then to Alan. Alan looked at me directly. "Mr. Caldwell, is that accurate? Have you asked Miss Harlow to handle bill payments on your behalf?" I spoke clearly. "No, I have not." Jenna's mouth opened slightly, then closed. He's proud. He doesn't like admitting he needs help." That's when the branch manager leaned forward. "Ma'am, you are not authorized to characterize his mental state. Please address the paperwork only." Jenna's cheeks flushed. "I'm just trying to help." Patricia slid the paper toward her. "Explain why the form includes ATM withdrawals and card replacements." Jenna's eyes darted. "It's standard language." Patricia's voice stayed calm. "Then it should be easy to remove, yes?" Jenna hesitated. "Well, it's a template. It's what we have." The branch manager said, "We have different forms we can customize, but we need Mr. Caldwell's explicit instruction." I watched Jenna's hands. One finger tapped her pen faster, faster. Then her phone buzzed on the table. She tried to ignore it, but it buzzed again. Alan looked at it briefly. "You may step outside if you need to take that." Jenna scooped it up. "It's probably Rachel. She worries." She stood up and walked out of the office. And the second she left, Patricia whispered, "Do not speak. Let her call." We could hear her through the glass, muffled but clear enough in tone. "Jenna, I'm at the bank. He brought a lawyer. Pause. Jenna. Yes, a lawyer. And the grandson is here. Another pause. Jenna's voice rose. I don't know. He's acting different. Then she hissed. No, I can't just make him sign. He's refusing. I looked at Liam. His face was pale. Patricia kept her eyes forward, but her jaw tightened. Jenna came back in after a minute with her smile forced back onto her face. Rachel is on her way, she announced, like she was calling in backup. Patricia nodded once. Fine. The branch manager didn't look pleased, but she didn't stop it. 10 minutes later, Rachel stormed into the bank like she owned the building. She didn't greet me first. She looked at Jenna. What happened? Then she saw Patricia and froze. Who is that? Patricia stood calmly. Patricia Klein, attorney for Mr. Caldwell. Rachel's eyes narrowed. She finally looked at me, and her voice went sugary. Dad, why would you hire a lawyer? Jenna's just helping. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse. I simply asked, Rachel, why did you try to run a credit inquiry in my name? Her face flickered. Confusion, then anger. What? I didn't. Patricia slid the credit notice across the table toward her. This arrived at his house. An inquiry attempt. During the same period, you and Miss Harlow discussed withdrawal limits. Rachel's gaze snapped to Jenna, sharp and accusing for a split second, then back to me. You're listening to nonsense, Rachel snapped. You're old. You don't understand these letters. The branch manager's eyes sharpened at the word old. I leaned forward slightly. Then explain why the bank has footage of Jenna withdrawing cash from my account at 6:12 in the morning. Jenna's head jerked up. That's... Alan cut in, voice firm. We have footage, yes. The person is identifiable. It is not Mr. Caldwell. Rachel's face drained so fast it was almost frightening. Jenna stared at her hands. And there it was, the moment when their confidence died. Rachel tried to pivot. Okay, maybe Jenna did something small for him. Sometimes he asks. He forgets. I said evenly. I didn't ask. Patricia opened her briefcase and placed a printed transcript on the table. Rachel, she said calmly, this is a transcript of a conversation between you and Miss Harlow discussing ATM limits, replacement cards, and rerouting a debit card to her address. We have the original audio file. We also have bank logs. Would you like to continue claiming misunderstanding? Rachel's lips parted, but no sound came out. Jenna whispered, You recorded me. Liam's voice finally came, low and steady. I recorded you because you were stealing from my grandfather. Rachel turned on Liam like a cornered animal. How dare you? The branch manager stood. Ma'am, lower your voice. This is a bank. Rachel's eyes flashed. She looked at me again, and the mask came off completely. You were going to leave everything to charity anyway, she snapped. You told Eric that once. You were going to cut us out. My stomach twisted. That was never true. Rachel slammed her hand on the table. You don't need all that money. You sit in that house alone like a king while we struggle. Alan's face went hard. This meeting is over. Patricia stood beside me. We will be filing reports today. Adult Protective Services, police, and the bank's fraud department. Rachel's breathing turned shallow. Jenna looked like she might faint. And then, as if the universe wanted to make sure this ended with proof, Jenna blurted the worst possible sentence. I only did what Rachel told me, she said, voice breaking. She said it was legal if you signed. The room went silent. Rachel's head turned slowly toward Jenna, eyes wide with betrayal. Jenna realized what she'd said and tried to pull it back, but it was too late. Patricia looked at Alan and the branch manager. You heard that? The branch manager nodded once, already reaching for her phone. Yes, and it will be documented. Rachel's voice went thin. Jenna, shut up. But Jenna kept unraveling, panicked now. She said Eric wouldn't stop her. She said the money was already theirs. She said he was confused and the bank would believe it. Rachel looked at me, and for the first time her eyes weren't confident. They were afraid. I didn't feel victorious. I felt sick. Because this was my family, exposed under fluorescent bank lighting, with my grandson sitting behind me like the only adult in the bloodline besides me. Patricia placed a hand lightly on my arm. We're done here, Mr. Caldwell. As we stood to leave, Rachel called after me, voice cracking. Dad, please, don't do this. We can talk at home. I stopped at the door and turned back just enough for her to see my face. We've been talking, I said quietly. You just didn't think I could hear. And then I walked out, knowing the next step wasn't emotional anymore. It was legal. And now, with Jenna's confession hanging in the air, and the bank's documentation in motion, there was no going back, only forward into whatever justice looked like when the thief was sitting at your own table on holidays. Outside the bank, the winter air hit my face like I'd just stepped out of a burning room. Liam walked close to me, not touching, but ready to catch me if my knees decided they were done. Patricia stayed on my other side. Behind us, through the glass, I could still see Rachel pacing and Jenna sitting with her head in her hands. For a second I expected my heart to explode with anger. But what I felt was quieter. Grief. Not for money. For the idea that the people who ate at my table could sit in a bank and discuss my debit card like it was a spare key. Patricia opened her car door for me. "You did well," she said. I stared forward. "It doesn't feel like I did." "It never feels good when the truth is ugly," she replied. "But today, you protected yourself. That matters." Liam got into the back seat and shut the door carefully. When he spoke, his voice was strained. "Grandpa, what happens now?" I looked at him in the rearview mirror. "Now we do what we should have done the moment the bank called. We make it official." That afternoon, Patricia took me straight to the police station. Not to be dramatic. To start a paper trail that couldn't be twisted later. A young officer at the front desk looked at me the way people look at older men. Polite, distracted, assuming it's a misunderstanding about a neighbor's fence or a noisy car. Then Patricia placed her folder on the counter and said, "We're here to report suspected financial exploitation of an elder, attempted fraud and conspiracy. We have bank documentation, ATM footage, and an audio recording." The officer's posture changed immediately. He called for a detective. In a small interview room, I gave my statement slowly and clearly, the way Patricia coached me. Not emotional, not vague. Dates, times, names. Jenna Harlow, caregiver, hired through a recommendation coordinated by my son and daughter-in-law. Rachel Caldwell, daughter-in-law, pressured me to trust family and sign paperwork without reading. Bank fraud flags beginning about 2 months prior. ATM withdrawals I did not make. Attempted authorized user addition. Attempted credit inquiry. Third-party authorization papers presented to me at home, pre-filled with Jenna's name. And finally, the bank confrontation with Jenna's own confession. I only did what Rachel told me. The detective, a calm man named Ruiz, didn't interrupt much. He just asked clarifying questions and took notes. When he finished, he said something that made my throat tighten. "Mr. Caldwell, you're not the first person this happens to," he said gently, "but you're one of the few who catches it early with evidence. Your bank did the right thing calling you." I nodded. "My grandson did the right thing too." Ruiz looked at Liam. "You recorded the audio?" Liam's shoulders stiffened, but he nodded. "Yes, sir. I didn't plan it. I just heard them talking. Then later I started noticing things." Ruiz's eyes softened. That took courage. Patricia leaned forward. "We will provide copies through proper channels. Originals are preserved." Ruiz nodded. "Good. We'll open a case. We'll request the bank footage officially. And we may request phone records if needed." Then he added, "And Mr. Caldwell, do not let either of them back into your home. If Jenna has keys, change locks today." I swallowed. She doesn't have keys. But as the words left my mouth, a horrible doubt surfaced. Because Jenna cleaned. She did laundry. She organized. Keys go missing without being stolen. They get copied. After we left the police station, Liam and I drove straight to a hardware store. We bought new locks for every exterior door, plus a cheap camera system that could point at my front door and driveway. Back home, Liam installed the camera while I changed the locks with hands that trembled from adrenaline, not age. When the last screw went in, I stood in my hallway and stared at the front door like it was new. For the first time in weeks, I felt something close to control return. The next call came from the bank before dinner. Alan's voice was firm. "Mr. Caldwell, we've filed an internal incident report. We've also placed a permanent restriction on third-party interactions on your accounts. Additionally, the attempted authorized username and the in-branch interactions are now fully documented." "Thank you," I said. Alan paused. "I also need to tell you Rachel called the branch twice after you left." My jaw tightened. "What did she say?" "She demanded account information," Alan replied. She claimed she was handling your finances and that you were confused after your wife died. I closed my eyes. Alan continued. We refused, of course. But I want you to know she is actively attempting to establish a narrative. You should expect continued pressure. Patricia had warned me. Secure your narrative. That night, Patricia helped me file an Adult Protective Services report as well. It wasn't vengeance. It was protection. Mine, and potentially others, Jenna might be caring for. Because if Jenna could do this to me, she could do it to anyone. 2 days later, Eric showed up at my house unannounced. Not Rachel. Eric came alone. When I saw his car pull into the driveway on the new camera app, my body reacted before my mind did. I felt heat in my chest, the old father instinct. Protect the family, even when the family is the threat. Liam was in the kitchen with me. He looked at the screen and said quietly, "Do you want me to go upstairs?" "No," I said. "Stay right here." I opened the door with the chain still on. Eric stood there looking like he'd aged 5 years in 48 hours. His eyes were red, his jaw clenched. "Dad," he said, "we need to talk." I kept my voice level. "Talk here." Eric glanced at the chain, then at Liam behind me. "You called the police." "I reported a crime," I corrected. Eric flinched. "Rachel is freaking out. She says you're trying to destroy our family." I stared at him. "Your wife tried to steal my identity and my money." Eric ran a hand through his hair. "It didn't start like that." "Then tell me how it started," I said. He hesitated, and that hesitation was the confession. Finally he said, "We're drowning, Dad. Credit cards, daycare, the mortgage." Rachel kept saying, "You have money just sitting there." She said you'd never help because you're stubborn. And then she found Jenna and said it would be safer. Like a plan. "A plan," I repeated, tasting metal in my mouth. "To treat me like a bank machine." Eric's voice rose. "Not like that. She said you'd be taken care of." I cut him off, sharper now. "Taken care of by stealing from me?" Eric's eyes filled. "I didn't know she was doing the ATM thing. I didn't know about the credit inquiry." I swear, I believed him, in the sick way you believe someone who didn't drive the car but handed over the keys. "You didn't know," I said quietly. "But you didn't stop it." He whispered, "I didn't think you'd ever forgive me if I asked you for money." I stared at him for a long moment, and realized the truth was even uglier than greed. It was cowardice. "Eric," I said, "you were afraid of my answer, so you helped Rachel take away my right to answer at all." He swallowed hard. "What do you want me to do now?" I leaned closer to the gap in the door. "You want to do something?" "Yes," he said immediately. "Then you tell the truth," I said, "to the police if they ask, to your attorney, to yourself, and you stay away from my finances forever." Eric's face crumpled. "Dad, I love you," I said, and it hurt to say it, but it was true. "But love doesn't mean access." He nodded slowly, like the words were sinking into his bones. "Can I at least come in and talk, just me and you?" I glanced at Liam, then I shook my head. "Not today." Eric left after that, shoulders slumped. He didn't pound on the door. He didn't threaten. He looked ashamed, and somehow that made it harder. A week later, Detective Ruiz called Patricia and me in for an update. The bank had provided full transaction logs, teller notes, and one more piece that mattered: the attempted address change request, tied to an online action. Not completed, but attempted. Patricia said quietly, "That supports intent to intercept mail." Ruiz also said the ATM footage was clear enough that Jenna couldn't deny it. When Ruiz asked if I wanted to press charges, my stomach tightened, because part of me, the father part, wanted to make it stop, to erase it, to pretend it was a nightmare. But then I pictured my wife's face, and I imagined someone doing this to Marlene if she had outlived me. And I heard Alan's voice again. "Not that you know of is exactly why I'm calling. If I stayed quiet, I wouldn't be noble. I'd be a doormat with a heartbeat." "Yes," I told Ruiz. "I want to proceed." Patricia also filed for a protective order against Jenna. It was granted quickly. No contact, no return to my home, and a prohibition on attempting to access my finances. Jenna's agency was contacted. She was suspended pending investigation. As for Rachel, it became complicated. Rachel hadn't touched an ATM with her own hands. She hadn't walked into the branch in scrubs, but her voice was on the audio, and her messages showed pressure and coordination. Patricia explained it to me plainly. Criminal cases can take time, but civil remedies can move faster. So we moved fast where we could. We changed my will and updated my estate planning. Clean, documented, witnessed. I set up a trust structure that made it impossible for anyone to accidentally become an owner through a signature trick. I also added a legal requirement. No caretaker, no family member, no spouse of a family member could ever be granted financial access without my attorney's direct review and a medical competency letter on file. My protection against the confused old man's story. Patricia helped me draft a formal notice to Rachel and Eric. Any future contact about money had to go through counsel. No more texts. No more pressure. When Rachel realized she couldn't push me directly anymore, she tried one last move. She came to my house on a Sunday afternoon with her sweetest voice and her saddest face. She rang the bell and said through the door, "Dad, please, I just want to apologize." I watched her on the camera app. I didn't open the door. I spoke through it. Calm. "Rachel, leave." Her voice cracked. "You're tearing the family apart." I answered, "You tore it when you tried to steal from me." Then she did exactly what people like her always do when charm fails. Her voice hardened. "You'll die alone, you know." I didn't raise my voice. I just said, "Leave my property." She stood there a moment longer, then walked back to her car. Liam saw the whole thing, standing beside me, and his eyes shone with a mix of pain and relief. "I'm sorry," I told him quietly. He shook his head. "Don't be sorry, Grandpa. I'm sorry she did this." Over the next month, the legal process moved in its slow, grinding way. Investigations, statements, requests, follow-up calls. But something else happened too, something I didn't expect. My house got quieter in one way and louder in another. Quieter because Jenna was gone, and the constant hovering stopped. Louder because Liam came by more, not just to check on me, but to be here. He'd cook pasta, complain about a professor, sit at my table and talk like the kitchen wasn't a place of betrayal anymore. One evening he said, "You know, Grandpa, I used to think being old meant being powerless." I looked at him, and now I think being old just means people assume you won't fight back, he said. "But you did." I swallowed around the lump in my throat. "I fought back because you handed me the proof." He shrugged, but his eyes were wet. "I just didn't want them to erase you." That sentence, that was the real crime, deeper than money. Erasing, not just draining accounts, but draining dignity. In the end, Jenna took a plea deal. The detective told me it was often the cleanest way to secure accountability without years of trial. She lost her caregiving license and was ordered to pay restitution for the withdrawals and investigation costs. A judge issued a long-term no-contact order. Rachel didn't get a neat, satisfying movie ending. Real life rarely does. But she lost something she thought she could never lose: control. Eric moved out for a while. Their marriage fractured under the weight of what she'd dragged into our lives. The family court got involved for custody considerations, because financial exploitation doesn't look good when you're asking a judge to trust you with children. And I made sure of one more thing. I met with Eric alone in Patricia's office, not in my home, not at my table, and I told him the boundary that would define the rest of our relationship. "You can be my son," I said. "You can't be my handler." Eric cried. I didn't. Not because I'm made of stone, because I'd already cried in the weeks before in private where no one could use it against me. Now, months later, my accounts are locked down tighter than ever. My mail goes to a locked box. My passwords are nonsense phrases nobody could guess. My bank has my verbal passcode. My attorney is on file. My cameras stay on. And the biggest change, I don't sign anything just to keep the peace. If you take anything from my story, take this. If someone pressures you to sign quickly, it isn't help, it's control. If someone calls you confused when you ask for clarity, they're trying to steal your voice. And if your gut tells you something is off, don't swallow that feeling to be polite. Document. Ask questions. Bring in professionals. Protect your name the way you protect your life. Because at this age, your name is your life. I'm still 72. I'm still a widower. I still miss my wife every day. But I'm not invisible. And I'm not owned. If you were in my position, if the bank called you and said your caregiver was acting like the owner of your accounts, what would you do? Tell me in the comments. And if you want more stories like this, stories about family betrayal, hard evidence and justice that comes from staying calm and staying smart, subscribe, because there's always another lesson someone needs before it's too late.